Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of Islam for Europeans. I am your host, Robert. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Tennis season is upon us. It is my favorite sport. I love playing it. It really teaches you a lot about yourself. So, a couple of days ago, I was playing a good friend of mine. And, I would say that I'm a more skilled player than he is, right? And he admits that. But this friend of mine, this brother, may Allah bless him, he's got a lot of tenacity when he plays, right? So I remember he played one pro set and I beat him 8-3. And I was up 4-1 in the second set, so because he wanted to play another set to six, right? So I'm thinking, no, I've got it. I'm doing it extremely well, and I believe I was up, I think I had like love 40 break point or something like that at 1-4, right? And I end up losing this match. He wins like 8 points in a row, 3 games in a row, and it was just such a kick in the pants because I was just cruising. I was playing so incredibly well, and then once he started, playing with tenacity and playing point for point, I lost it, and I just it just completely I just completely capitulated, right? So this is the analogy that I'm going to use for watching the most recent video with Mohammed Hijab, brother Mohammed Hijab. And another example would be, for example, the Atlanta Falcons playing the New England Patriots in like the 2017 Super Bowl. They had so many losing seasons. They get Matt Ryan. They play extremely well all the way through. They play an unbelievable, 3 quarters of the Super Bowl. They have an 18-point lead, which is seemingly insurmountable, and then it all falls apart. I'm not saying this to disparage Brother Mohammed Hijab. I hope that he watches this video because I'm going to give my analysis of his recent video, London Hate March. So um, I don't know if you've been watching the news lately, but Tommy Robinson is back in the news, and he staged a massive protest in London called, the "This is London, not Londonistan" hate rally. Really idiotic. I mean, and you have all the people on the anti-Islam faction of what we supposedly call the right wing come out to this event. Now, I do think that Brother Muhammad did it. I think he's vastly improved in terms of the when he does these kinds of videos. I was very impressed. He didn't use the term white man not once throughout the entire video. I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know. Maybe he's listening to our videos. Maybe he's taking our nasiha. And what we recommend is we can't we have to look at the political landscape. And I was also very impressed that I'm kind of getting ahead of myself because Mohammed Hijab is actually good friends with Dili Hussein, and as you know, Dili, he just interviewed four figures, not just one but four, that I guess you call on the dissident right. So for those who don't know, who just starting to watch my channel, the right is basically divided into two factions now. And Mohammed Hijab kind of mentioned this, although he didn't use the term dissident right. You have the anti-Islam faction. I don't even like to call them right because, they're not really about ethnic identity. I mean, all of it is just about anti-Islam sentiment. And I'm going to get into that, a little bit about that later. They're not ethnonationalists. They just want people not to be Muslim. It doesn't matter about the demographic situation of England. Like you have millions of Sikhs come in or Chinese come in, as long as they're not Muslim, and as long as they're not Britons, white Britons are not converting to Islam, right? And this is one critique I have of Mohammed Hijab's video, even though it's a small one, and that Tommy Robinson has been known to be completely vehemently against any type of ethno-nationalist movement in the UK, right? He's been completely at odds with and has always been arguing with what used to be Patriotic Alternative. I don't know if they've been completely deplatformed at this point, but there is a very there was a debate, and I've never been to the UK, but this is, just what I heard from the grapevine that several years ago, Tommy Robinson engaged in a debate with Laura Towler from Patriotic Alternative. And Tom was basically saying, Dems as white supremacists, you need to be with, our group, the EDL, we support like a multi-ethnic Britain. We just don't want Muslims, right? It's Islam that's a problem. Islam, 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 right? Islam bad, not Islam good. That's Tommy Robinson's basically MO. Whereas Laura Towler, said, the focus shouldn't be on Islam. It should be the changing demographics of Britain, right? And as a caveat, I don't know if you've ever seen my videos before. I don't think that we should ally with either the anti-Islam right or the dissident right. Right. I think we should do our own thing, and we have our own recommendations as to what the Muslim community can do. But what is important is that we keep these two groups as divided as humanly possible. And I think that's very important. We need to divide and conquer. We need to take moral principle stances that are in line with the Islamic teachings and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And we also have to be smart. We have to be smart. We have to play 4D chess, because when you start saying things, that's sort of make the dissident right want to ally, with the establishment right, then they end up voting for the same political parties. They end up going to the same marches, and that's bad. So I think that it's a great. I think Mohammed Hijab. I was really just going for him the whole video. It's like a 14-minute video. Going, yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. Keep going. Keep going. Because he was saying, that not using any kind of like a ethnic, racial, like kind of angle to it. He was just basically just focusing on the people on the anti-Islam right who are just basically just bashing on Islam. Tommy Robinson, David Atherton, Douglas Murray, and just focusing on the people. Focus on the people who are saying all these things, and not have these kind of blanket statements, against the white British public. So I think Dilly has been talking to Mohammed Hijab because he did mention that the right is now splitting over the obviously the recent world events, and the people who are on the Nick Griffin, Jada Franson side, they're absolutely horrified with what is going on. They don't want this to be done in their name. And at a certain, I think Nick is more willing to work with Muslims. He wants to have more cooperation with them. And I think it's great that even someone of Mohammed Hijab's level with that amount of subscribership, even he is starting to notice that there is this crack forming. I think I think that since he has such a large subscribership, that this is starting to get actually into the mainstream. The attack wasn't on the kids who were yelling. Obviously, there are some kids whose parents wanted to scream all these obscenities like "Who the f is Allah?" A sub for the law. I feel bad even saying that, but it's just focus on anger for Islam, right? And but again, Tommy Robinson, I've followed his stuff as a bystander for many years. It's just Islam with him. Like he was, I think he tweeted out that he totally supports Sikhs that came out to the London Hate March. So he said he fully supports like the Sikh community who come out to this in support of us. So it's double trouble for someone like Tommy to host these kind of marches, because not only is he inflaming the white British public, but also like these anti-Islam minority groups. Because there's a lot of there's some people in these groups who don't like Muslims, they don't like Islam. And you just need to look at Fatima Barkatullah's study on converts to Islam. It wasn't white converts that had the most problems with their families. It was Hindu converts, Sikh converts, Arab converts to Islam, right? So it's unfortunate that you have this kind of visible hate march that gets all the funding, because when you look at the actual statistics, I mean, you can go on the More in Common website that just did a study on non-Muslim attitudes towards Islam, and when you look at the actual statistics, support for Palestine, support for Muslim communities is actually higher than it's ever been. I can give you the statistics right now. Non-Muslim, British public, 21% had a negative opinion of Islam or Muslims. So that's divided into 9% highly negative, 12% slightly negative, 40% don't care or have no opinion, and 17% had a slightly positive image of Islam or Muslims, and 18% had a very positive image of Muslims. I mean, those are vastly better numbers than in 2003. But the problem is when you have this kind of hate march and you don't interact, you don't have any non-Muslim white British family members, it's going to be skewed. You're going to totally think that, the vast majority of the white British public thinks this way. But, the sad reality is that the 40% who don't have an opinion on Islam, they're not going to have an I don't have an opinion march, right? The people who have the white British who have a positive opinion of Muslims, they're not going to have a white British people, for Muslims march, right? They're far more, I hate to use this term, they're far more cucked. They don't get this kind of funding. And he mentioned funding because the anti-Islam right gives a lot of funding to the Tommy Robinson crowd. I saw a statistic where Loki mentioned that Tommy Robinson gets like £10,000 a month, which is an insane number. And even when it comes to the dissident right, it's far more difficult for them to organize in any particular way. Most of them have been deplatformed on YouTube, so it's almost impossible to reach their content. And even if they were to have a march with thousands of people, the mainstream media wouldn't show it, right? So it's unfortunate, that the anti-Islam faction of the right is going to appear as though that they represent, the British public, right? So I have nothing but great things to say about Mohammed Hijab, Brother Mohammed's video. He did an excellent job. I was rooting for him all the way up until minute 13 and 39 seconds when he gives his final kind of counter punch, and he just basically makes it about the white British and how they totally need ethnic minorities, and the fact that they're getting angry at ethnic minorities is just basically a scapegoat for their own failures, just to give like a jab to those people. And I can kind of understand where he's coming from. Like, he has every right to be upset. I mean, I didn't live through being a non-white person, a non-white Muslim in Britain, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, right? But this is the kind of stuff that just unites the dissident right and the anti-Islam right, and that's not what we want, because anyone's going to take that clip and you can show it to anyone in the dissident right, and they'll be like, people on the dissident right will be like, yeah, you know what, I don't agree with the dissident right. I mean, I don't agree with the anti-Islam right. I hate Tommy Robinson. I loathe him. But what he said is just so inflammatory that I'm just going to probably end up voting reform anyway, or going to the next Tommy Robinson march, and that's not what we want. We want to have principled positions that keep these two groups as divided as humanly possible without even having to ally with them, because you can't really ally with the dissident right. You can't ally with the dissident right because it's very dangerous. You could get deplatformed. You could lose your job, and we don't agree with them on everything either. Their main concerns are immigration, regardless of whether they're Muslim or not. But their opinions on Islam range from neutral to even positive, right? So, and for those who haven't seen our channel yet, and I hope Brother Mohammed watches this video, I mean, what we're recommending is very simple and very feasible, and that is basically a communitarian approach to the Dawah. I.e., the white British who converts to Islam, their main focus should be on creating sub-organizations, their own restaurants, their own committees, They would still be interacting with the greater Muslim community, but they would develop their own aesthetic, right? They would incorporate, the traditional dress, traditional cuisine, the traditional architecture, the traditional sports and games, the slang, and this would be a growing sub-community, in Great Britain. I mean, you see people taking their shahada en masse. It's just that they don't ever think of collectivizing in any way, shape, or form, and that's how you grow a sub-community from the ground up. And if the Muslim community, if the people on the dissident right see that the Muslim community actually care about preserving the culture of the native British, you would start to see their opinions changing, and and inshallah, once that sub community grows, and then you see the percentage of the Muslim community that's actually white British, over time, like they'll be like, wow, I mean, this isn't gonna, Islam would actually be increasing the total fertility rate of the native British. And this is something that Tommy Robinson would absolutely despise, because he just basically hate towards Islam. And I know that, one of the arguments that Mohammed said about Tommy Robinson thinking that he's, like an ethno-nationalist, is saying the changing aesthetics of Britain. I mean, he may have said that, and maybe that was just something to try to cull, more like ethno-nationalist people on his side. But it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you look at, the mosque that they built, I forget where it was, but it was basically, I think Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Marat was like one of the spearheads in that. It's like it was built, in the style of, the wood from the forest of like an area in Britain. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I forget the name of it, but that's where you actually incorporate, the aesthetic. And really, what we should be doing is that any future mosques or masajid in Europe should be built with the architectural style of the country, or existing edifices that are just vacant, and that solves that problem as well. There's no set shape of a mosque that's necessary. You don't need to build a mosque in like an Arab style, and you can take this kind of concept that we're using anywhere, and not just in the West. I mean, look at Japan. Like the Muslim community in Japan hasn't even thought of this. I mean, no one has ever thought of taking a Japanese style architecture and turning it into a masjid, even in the interior design. So, my advice to Brother Mohammed is, I see a vast improvement. I think Dilly's probably talking to him, and I think that the idea that the opinions on Islam, not and Zionism, and the ongoing genocide, that is splitting the right in twain. But I just think that we need to use this split to our full advantage, without having to ally with either group. So overall, for the video, thumbs up. You didn't use any ethnic slurs, which is awesome. Just the last part, right up until 13 minutes and 39 seconds was basically where you kind of lost me there. But in any case, watch my video, watch Brother Mohammed's video. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Yeah, that's my time for the day at Islam for Europeans. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.